Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time of day it is, wherever you are, you done and you did it again. If you're hearing this, you have once again tuned in the Consequence of Habit podcast. This is your host, JT. A little housekeeping first. I got to give a huge thank you, like always, to my friends at Athletic Brewing Company. I've said it before, but when I started this whole thing, they've been part of the journey from the very beginning. And when we started this as a nonprofit, they were the first people to step up and step up huge. So thank you to those guys. If you guys, I don't know whether you drink, you don't drink, maybe you can't drink today for whatever reason, or you're like me, you just don't drink booze at all, but you love good beer. Well, they've got the solution for you. Check them out at athleticbrewing.com. Use the promo code capital COH20. Get 20% off your first order. Be kind to yourself. Have some great beer without the hangovers. The second organization that I want to mention here is the Patriot Fund. Patriot Fund is a veteran nonprofit. And again, they stepped up. They found out what we were doing. They saw that we were helping some of the veteran communities within our area, and they supported us. They got behind us. They invested in us. So huge thank you to them. All right, that brings us to this week's guest. And I'm proud to announce this is the first in-person guest I've had here on this podcast. This week, I'm joined by Patrick Brady. Patrick's got one hell of a story. You want to talk about transformation. We said on here before that, as a kid, sometimes you're just given examples on how to live your life. And sometimes those examples aren't always good. But at some point, we have to make this choice. Is there a better way of doing things? Do I have to live the same life that my parents did? And Patrick's here to show you, man, the answer is no. Now, that doesn't mean this guy didn't have some huge struggles, because he did, and he's going to describe those. He flipped the script. He made a change. He made a huge change, and he's now providing for his family and his kids, showing them an example of a different way of doing things, a healthier way of doing things. Patrick went from a guy that was kind of rock bottom, who's now he's got this goal of being the oldest person to join the UFC. We talk about his experiences with drugs and alcohol, his transformation, and now his involvement in mixed martial arts. It's a heavy one. So be prepared. Without further ado, please welcome to the podcast, Patrick Brady. Patrick Brady, dude, you are the first in-person guest I've had on this.
That's awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, see, this is huge.
I appreciate that.
This is a long time coming, man. We've been skirting around this for a bit now, but it's come to fruition, man. And I'm really stoked we're doing it.
Yeah, we made it happen. I made it a priority.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, you did.
And we got it done.
Yeah, man.
So I'm here.
Here we are.
I'm glad to be here. I'm happy to be here. I'm grateful to be here.
So some of the stuff we're going to discuss today, my initial thing is I'm a big fight fan, right? I love MMA.
Yeah.
Just so happens I'm a first responder, and so I ended up reaching out to your boy Dawkins and Christopher Dawkins, yeah, and about coming on the show, and he did. And just through that, I saw some of the stuff you were putting out, and I think what happened was the way we made the connection is I think I offered you Athletic Brewing. Mm-hmm. You remember that?
Yeah.
And you said, I don't drink.
Uh-huh.
And I said, well, I don't either. It's non-alcoholic. And that kind of sparked.
Yeah, there's a certain vibe that we pick up. It's like, you
smell your own.
Yeah, exactly.
Dude, my
sponsor.
Sure. I've told this story on here. My sponsor is a guy, he never told me he was sober. And I was like in the process of just getting sober. And I said to my wife, I said, I bet you Chris, I think he's like doesn't drink or doesn't. I know maybe he used to. Like he seems like a guy who partied hard back in the day, and sure enough, it was dead on, man. So So I offer you that. You say I don't drink. We start this interaction, and you end up sending me a podcast where you start talking about. It was about fighting, right? But at some point, it turns, and you get into your own story around sobriety and kind of your struggles. But before we get into that, tell everyone where you're from, where you grew up, and a little bit even about the most notably people know you about fighting. So explain kind of where the gym and your association with UFC and all this stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I grew up so my family originally is from Southwest Philly. Anybody who knows the Philadelphia area or, the layout of Philadelphia. Southwest Philly, is a rough spot. It's, it's rough. It's rough down there. And my mom and my stepfather were able to get me and my brother out when we were about 6, and we moved to Collingdale. Now, Collingdale was better at the time than Southwest Philly. It's not much better now than Southwest Philly was then, but Collingdale was a cool little town, but it was still had that rough edge, and it was a tight-knit community, Collingdale was, and we all kind of knew each other from sports. I played a lot of sports growing up.
Yeah,
I played football, baseball, hockey, and pretty much everyone from the area of Collingdale kind of knew me from playing football. I was an athletic kid. And, I was able to find myself on the football field. That being said, I didn't have it at home, right? I didn't have that home life structure. Again, because my mom and my stepdad were from Southwest Philly, so they kind of had that edge to them.
Sure.
And it wasn't the same back then as it is now. Like the kids weren't really coddled.
Yeah.
And they weren't sheltered, and we were exposed to a lot of things as kids, and we saw a lot, and we were around a lot. And for me, football kind of kept me away from all that, that home life trouble. And there was a lot of it. There was a lot of trauma at home. My mom struggled. My stepdad struggled up until the day he died.
Yeah.
He just passed away, a couple months back now.
Oh, wow.
He went into the hospital with, I could be saying it wrong, myocarditis, inflammation of the heart.
Yep.
As a direct result of intravenous drug use.
Yeah.
And they basically, they said you need surgery and you need direct IV antibiotics, and you're going to be here for a little bit. And he got up and left. Wow. See you later. And,
yeah.
Went and got high one more time, and he died.
Wow.
It was, and, that's the kind of like mentality that I was raised around. It's like, it is what it is, right? And football was kind of like my saving grace as a kid growing up. So, we had Collingdale, we had football. And then, from there I went to high school, and in high school, again, football was there. But, in high school, there was drinking.
Yeah, right? I was going to say, at what point does your party life kind of start here?
Drinking started in high school. So drinking kind of really took off, let's say, 9th, 10th grade.
Yeah.
Yeah, so funny story. I was in high school, and I went up to the local beer distributor to try to get a case of beer. And they were like, how old are you? And I was like, I'm 21, but, my license was suspended because of a DUI.
Yeah.
And they were like, they were Asian. And I'm like, yeah, sorry, we can't serve you. So I went home, and I asked my mom, I said, Mom, everybody's relying on me to get the beer. Now, we had a spot in Philly that we could drive to and go get it, but I didn't feel like it. So I just went home and I asked my mom, and I said, "Mom, can you go up the street and get us the beer?" And she's like, "Oh, whatever." So she goes up there and she gets the exact same thing that I was just ordering. And at the time, we had beer balls, right? So beer balls.
I remember those bad boys.
Pump.
Oh, yeah.
So we had beer balls at the time, and my mom, she goes in and she gets 2 Bud Light beer balls, right? Or whatever the hell it was. But it was 2 beer balls. And they said, "Was your son just in here?" And she's like, "Yeah, he lost his ID and he got a DUI." And they're like, "Oh," and they felt bad, right? So they felt bad. And they gave her like some T-shirts and like some free beef jerky.
Jesus.
And she comes out with like my 2 beer balls and like 2 T-shirt, like Budweiser T-shirts and like some beef jerky. And she's like, "Here." And then she's like, my mom goes, "Come on in." And then I come in and they're like, "Oh," and they were Asian. They were like all apologetic. And so I was the beer guy from
that point on.
From that point on, I went there and they knew me. "Hey, hello, Patrick," and I was the only one, in the area from my group of friends, at least that I know of, that could get beer close. Like I said, we had to drive 20, 30 minutes into the city to get beer previous to that. And, there was always a little bit of risk involved.
Sure.
But now it's like the risk was eliminated. It's like, we're good.
And
that's kind of where it started. And then there was like, I got thrown out of junior prom because we were blasted. And then my senior year, I actually got a DUI my senior year. And I drove up to the mountains and got into a fight and tried driving home and crashed into a tree. And
yeah. I mean, you're skating over that. The fact, but I mean, that was a legit. Like, you got messed up in that.
Yeah. So without skating over that was a whole thing. So like that's what kind of when I started to feel the consequences of alcohol, right? Like that's when kind of alcohol started affecting me negatively, because up until then it was kind of like just a part of the scene, right? But the DUI that I got my senior year in high school was kind of like, okay, you're receiving consequences.
Yeah.
Right. Like that. And it was a pretty severe one. It was a really severe one. And, I went up the mountains. I was with people who I thought were friends, and, I was just chasing the booze and chasing girls. And I went up there and I got into a fight with some guys who, I'd fought with previous, but I thought it was over. And they jumped me pretty good. And I tried to drive home. And as a result of being jumped, I was bleeding pretty bad. And I passed out from loss of blood and I hit a tree.
Jesus.
And, so I'm up the mountains, and I don't know if you're familiar with the Telemensing Trails, but there is fucking nothing up there. Nothing. You're in the middle of nowhere.
Right.
And for some stupid reason, there's a park ranger driving down that road at 3:00 in the morning. And there's like fucking one of them for covering 500 square miles, something stupid. And he just so happened to be driving down that road at that time. If that's not God, I don't know what is. Right? So he finds me bashed into a tree and calls an ambulance. An ambulance comes and they're like, "No way, this kid's dead. He's going to die." Because I was bleeding that bad. I had a laceration across my forehead that went between my eyes, almost through my eye, all the way up until my forehead. And the ambulance drove me to a field where a field picked me up in a helicopter, and they medevaced me to St. Luke's Trauma Center in Bethlehem. So I was told that they lost me twice in the helicopter and once on the trauma table from loss of blood.
Stop right there for a second. How did you process that at the time? I mean, because the reality is, this park ranger's driving around is why you're alive, right? Like it's the reason you're alive.
Correct.
How did you process that as a kid? Was it just something like?
I didn't.
You didn't.
I didn't process shit. No, nothing ever got processed. Nothing processed until I was 32, and I found myself laying in bed in rehab. Nothing processed. Process?
Silly question. Moving on.
No, it's all good. Like, look, I mean, consequences and fucking turmoil and none of that shit mattered because it's what I grew up around.
Yeah.
It was all a part of my life. It was every day. So, me laying in a hospital bed, like, okay, so what? We're here. You know what I mean? Like, it wasn't the first time I was in the hospital, and to me, like, this kind of crazy shit happened all the time. I've seen my mom beaten. I've seen my dad beaten. I've seen cops. I've seen bullets. I've seen guns. I've seen drugs. I've seen it all.
Right.
So to me, laying in a hospital bed with a busted up face was
expected.
Yeah. I mean, this kind of shit was just average, you know? And, that's when, like, the shit started to get bad and ugly, when the consequences started to happen. But, like I said, it really wasn't, nothing was registering. Nothing was setting in like, oh, shit, maybe you shouldn't do this. I mean, I knew I was wrong, right? Because, you're dealing with fucking probation and all that bullshit. And, like, drinking and driving is bad, right?
Yeah, sure.
Like, you're not supposed to do that. Like, right from wrong. But,
what kind, at this point, your family is, I mean, that's.
Yeah. So at this point, my stepdad and my mother were separated. I had just met my real father, I want to say a couple months previous to that. So I didn't know my real dad growing up. He wasn't in my life. I never met him until I was 18. My mom, he paid my mom child support and had nothing to do with me. And so when I was 18 in Pennsylvania, you get paid, a mother gets paid child support either till the kid graduates from high school or they turn 18, whichever comes last. I was 18, I was still in high school, so she was entitled to getting child support up until I graduated.
Yeah.
But she had to go back in. So my mom says, look, your dad's going to be at court. Do you want to go? I'm like, yeah, fuck it. Why not?
Yeah.
I'll meet him. So I went, I met him, and, he has a lot of regret about that. That's a whole nother thing. But
he's got regret about.
He's got regret about the way he handled the fucking first 18 years of my life. You know what I mean? The entire way he handled all of that. He's got a lot of regret there, but I don't. You know what I mean? Everything happened exactly the way that it was supposed to happen in my life for me to be exactly where I am.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've ever seen the movie Butterfly Effect. You change one little fucking thing and everything changes. So I'm cool with everything the way that it went, and it took a lot of convincing from me to him that, like, dude, I'm not mad. Like, I probably had a little bit of resentment for him that I was unaware of as a kid.
Yeah.
A little bit of chip on my shoulder, but nothing that, like, really I was aware of on the surface. But back to your question about my home life, my mom was separated or divorced at that point from my stepfather. And, we were bouncing around a little bit from where we were living, this boyfriend, that boyfriend. And, there was no oversight from her.
Yeah.
I told you, she went and got us fucking booze.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, it was, I could do whatever the hell I wanted to do. So I got into that real bad car accident, and I was homeschooled the rest of the year. I say this joke all the time. I was homeschooled the rest of the year, and the homeschooling teacher, Coach Braun, maybe it was Coach Braun. No, maybe it wasn't Coach Braun. Started with a B. He was a homeschooling teacher, and he was a football coach. I got straight A's.
Of course you did.
The only time ever in my life I got straight A's. We had mentioned me in academics previous to us starting, but I was a terrible student. I mean, I consider myself an intelligent person, and when I sit down and I dedicate myself to learning something, I'm 100% completely capable of analyzing and learning it and being receptive. But, as long as I do that,
You're good.
I'm good. But if I don't do that, it's gone. And I didn't do that in high school. I did just enough to get by. And, I got straight A's, which bumped up my GPA just enough. And I got through a couple classes, and then, I was able to play football my senior year. That happened. The crash happened in March, and April, May, June, July, August. I played football in August of that year.
Wow.
2 screws on my ankle, a titanium plate in my cheek. The doctor straight up told me, you are never going to play football ever again. You can't. You have a titanium plate in your face. You can't deal with impact to your face.
Yo, can you imagine that now? Like a doctor says that kid doesn't play football. The school wouldn't let him.
Well, I didn't tell my trainers. My trainers knew that my athletic trainer knew that I had screws in my ankle because he had to tape it and address the ankle. But nobody knew from the school that I had plates in my face.
What year is this, you think?
This is 2002. I graduated in 2003.
Okay.
But yeah, I didn't tell the trainers I had a plate in my face. I might have been a little aware of hey, look, that they could try to shut that down. Or maybe they wouldn't have. I don't know. But I know I didn't tell anybody, and I know there was a reason why I didn't tell anybody.
Sure.
I went on from there, and I was lucky enough that I did just enough to get by, and I went to college and I played football at Widener.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So
right.
I went to Widener, and I was at Widener from 2003 to 2007, and I was enough just to get by, and I was very lucky. That I was good at football. You know what I mean? I did just enough to get by, but that's when shit got nuts.
That's when the demons came out.
Fucking the demons, yeah. Our boy Goggins talks about the demons all the time.
Dude, you don't pick when the demons visit you. So
no, sir.
So
and they were there, man. So in college, that's it was a different environment. So I came from a low income area. You know what I mean? And low income areas, as far as I was concerned, there wasn't a lot of drugs around. There wasn't. Maybe people were smoking pot and
it was booze.
It was booze, and at least the crew that I hung out with, there might have been a little bit of ecstasy floating around, but it wasn't prevalent. And but when I got to college, you're rubbing elbows with rich kids, and everybody's here, everybody's there, and that was when I was introduced to coke, and that was where shit took off, And what we mentioned this previous to us starting, but I'm self-diagnosed ADHD. So right, I've never sat down with a physician and took a test or did anything like that. But I'm pretty sure I have ADHD.
Wait, and you say that because coke helped you.
Coke shut the fucking lights off.
Yeah.
Coke would calm me down. Yeah. Totally calm me down. And everybody knew when I was on coke that because any other time I'm talking, I'm the life of the party, I'm extra man. And then if I did a little bit of coke, man, it was like, whew.
Yeah, that's a clear sign, right?
Yeah.
They even found kids with it are crazy addicted to sugar. And because it has the same effect.
I love sugar.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Love it.
It has that where some kids it makes them wild. It has that opposite effect, and it kind of brings them down a little bit. That's interesting, man. So you're almost self-medicating at this point.
Yeah, for sure, 100% self-medicating, and like anything else, I took it to the extreme.
Yeah,
and it became a 4 days a week, 4 nights a week. Nights became days, days became nights. Everything kind of ran together. But that was when but at that time it was still acceptable. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I took it further than the rest of the other students, but it was still acceptable. People were still doing it. Guys on the football team were still doing it. It was still around.
Did they give you a bunch of pills when you jacked up your ankle after the accident? Or
No. They didn't give me anything. The pills came later.
Okay.
There's a whole nother situation with the pills because they were inevitable, but they came later. No, they didn't give me the pills for my ankle or my face or any of that.
It might have been kind of early in that whole kind of epidemic where they were just passing those things out like Tic Tacs.
Yeah. That came. So I broke my back later in life, and that's when they unloaded the pills on me when I broke my back, and I literally had thoracic fusion done to my back, and they put 8 screws and 2 rods in my back, and he unloaded the pain pills.
Dude, first of all, so right now you've got
Oh, you want to talk about my ailments?
Dude, well, it's not like the ailments are one thing, but the fact that, dude, you're on the cusp of being a professional fighter.
No, I am a professional fighter.
See,
I'm on the cusp. My goal, my end game, is to make it to the UFC. Right?
Yeah. And that's what I mean. And I apologize. That's one thing you don't want to make a mistake of in front of a fighter, right?
Well, here's the thing. You say on the cusp of being a pro. So my wife, when I was fighting, when I first started fighting, and it would come up, it comes up. And people would say, oh, you fight, you do MMA, that's cool. And my wife would always interject and go, he's an amateur.
Oh,
like a fucking
just knocking you down,
right
just bring you down a notch.
Yeah, I know. She loved saying that I was an amateur. Well, now she can't say that anymore.
I got her.
I took that leap and I took that jump, and yeah, man. I am fighting at a high level, and I'm teammates with the highest level guys. With all of the problems that I have physically, the titanium plate in my cheek or orbital, the 2 screws in my ankle, the 8 screws in my back with the rods, and then I've had ACL surgery. I've had rotator cuff surgery.
Good God, man.
I've had, countless. I mean, my body is fucking jacked. like it's beat up, man. And, but I don't let that deter me, because it was jacked before I started fighting.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So like, I'm not gonna say that like I can't do something because or as a result of something that I think I can still do. Like if I had one leg, then okay. Dude, you can't do it.
Dude,
I got one leg.
Dude, the last guest before you.
Yeah, no, I saw that.
Dude, that guy, he's a Green Beret with one leg. Like,
yeah.
But I love that idea of most people would say, yo, Pat, you can't do this because you've got this, and this. You can't fight, but you determine whether that happens or not.
Yeah, so, I think we all determine what is and what isn't in our own lives. And I think when we allow other people, like you said, to tell us what we can and can't do, that's when we're selling ourselves short.
Sure.
Sure,
I mean? Man. I compare it like a choose your own adventure book. No one else gets to tell you where you're going to go.
No,
you know what I mean? Like that's your choice.
Absolutely. And we're fortunate enough and blessed enough to live in a country that allows us to do that. People do a lot of bitching about this country. They do. And, some of it is understandably so, but I try to hold on to being grateful and being grateful for the things that I do have versus the things that I don't have, or the fear of losing something that I do have, right? Because the fear, we can touch on fear.
Sure, man.
Right? And we are in a country where if you work your ass off and you fucking grind, you can get what you want. And like people always fucking, you're limited, but you're really not.
Yeah.
Like you're only as limited as you tell yourself, or as other people try to limit you.
Yeah,
right?
That's a buy-in, right? Like some people, they hear this this story of like what they can and can't do, and it's that, you know what I mean? Like
it's all bullshit.
Yeah,
you really can do whatever you want. You just have to how far are you willing to go?
Yeah.
Right? How far are you willing to go? And what are you willing to sacrifice to get what you're wanting?
All right.
Right? If you want to be a millionaire by the time you're age 30, right? Okay, so you're looking at your daily life pie, right? Like I like to use the pie analogy, and you only have one pie per day, right? You have one pie, and then you have to, throughout the course of the day, you have to give your life situations pieces of your pie. You got your kids, so they get a slice. You got your employment, they get a slice. You got your wife, she gets a piece. You got physical activity. Everybody gets a little piece, right? If you really want something, you give more of the pie to that thing.
Sure.
Right? And if you give all of your fucking pie to something, to me, it's reachable. To me, like okay, so maybe provided that you have some physical limitations, right? Like if you're fucking not athletic enough to fucking dunk a basketball, you're probably not going to be, an NBA MVP, right? Like within your physical limitations.
Your control, like what you can control.
What you can control. Then you can do pretty much whatever you want to do. And this country has afforded people that,
Sure.
right?
Sure. But we're digressing because I want to get to kind of, and I don't even like the word rock bottom because everyone's bottom is completely different. And some people think they got to reach that before there's a change. But let's get to the point where the shit has hit the fan.
Yeah.
Change has to happen. Because if it doesn't, this whole thing is over with.
Yeah.
All right. So get us to that because
okay. So we'll lead up to it a little bit and then we'll get there. So I touched on when I broke my back, right? So I broke my back and
how did you do that?
I fell off a roof, right? So I fell off a roof. I landed on my feet. There's a whole story there, but at the end of the day, I'm laying in the hospital with a broken back, and the doctor, the neurosurgeon saying like, look, we can put you in a brace and you can wear a brace for the next fucking 2 years and then you'll be okay. Or we can do a spinal fusion and you'll be okay in 6 weeks, So, being as I like shortcuts, let's do the spinal fusion, We got the fusion done and, I was given a lot of pain meds, but God again, right? God interjected, man. God found his way into my life. And my wife at the time was driving to the hospital to see me. And an ex-coworker of mine and her driving to the hospital actually collided mirrors, right? So he's driving in one lane, opposite direction of her, and they hit mirrors. So, she's flustered.
Sure.
They pull over, and she recognizes him. And Jerry. So Jerry, I actually work with now. So Jerry, and she sees Jerry, and they're talking, and she tells Jerry where she's going, and Jerry's aware of my situation, and he is aware of who I am, and he's one of us. So he knows it's gonna get bad.
Yeah.
Right? Like he sees and he knows me. Like we've hung out together. We've gone places together and he knows me and he's made that change. And
so he doesn't have to connect too many dots to realize you're gonna be in some trouble.
Oh yeah, he knew what was coming. And at that point I hadn't seen Jerry in a couple years, right? Shows up to the hospital. My man walks into the hospital and he's with my wife at the time, and he's like, how are you? I'm like, Jared, what are you doing here?
Yeah.
What the fuck are you doing here? You know what I mean? And he basically just says like, look, man, when you get out, call me because they're gonna dose you up, and rightfully so. You're gonna need your pain pills because you got a broken back. You know what I mean? And then so after that, Jerry stayed in contact with me and called every other day. How you doing? How's this? How's that? I know it's crazy,
Yes.
right? For no reason, for fucking no reason. I hadn't talked to him in years, and here he is calling me. And look, I'm getting choked up thinking about
Yeah,
it.
it's great, dude. It's because it's real.
It's real, man. It's real. So he, with the pain pills, it comes. There was some money involved with the pain pills, right? And without saying too much, and then there was more coke, there's pain pills, more coke, money, and it got really bad. The ex-wife, now ex-wife, left me. She took the kids.
Yeah.
So now I'm in a house by myself. There's this situation where a friend of mine. So the last night, February 1st, 2016. A friend of mine had bought a bar, and they shut the bar down, reopened the bar, and he says, I'm having this grand reopening party, and my ex-wife says, you can't go to that, you can't participate in those things. I'm fucking going, and you're not gonna tell me I can't go. So I go.
You'll show her.
Yeah. I go, and I try. It's funny. I tried to hook up with my good friend at the time. I tried to hook up with his old lady.
Good God.
I know. And I'm trying to get coke, and there's all this. It's just mayhem.
Yes.
It's just mayhem. And then he calls my ex-wife, and so at this point, he's calling her saying, like, your fucking piece of shit husband just tried to hook up with my old lady, and he's drinking and driving, and all that craziness. So I go home, and so I order a girl off a back page.
Of course. Of course. Why wouldn't you?
So girl comes off a back page, and she comes into my house, and she's sitting on the couch. And my fucking ex-wife walks in the door, and there's a girl sitting on the couch. Nothing had happened. I could say that. Nothing happened. But she walks in, and there she is. You know what I mean? There's a fucking girl sitting on the couch. And mayhem. She's trying to fight her. The guy's outside in the car. The guy who took her there is protecting her, I guess. We're in suburbial Delco, and it's fucking 3:30 in the morning, and there's like WWE fucking WrestleMania in my living room, and so everybody leaves, and my ex-wife leaves, and I must have been texting her all night, telling her I was going to kill myself. I'm going to kill myself. I'm going to kill myself. And so I pass out. I wake up the next morning to two police officers kicking me. Like, they're kicking me. And they're like, Brady, get up. I don't know why every fucking cop in Delco knows me, but
it's not an accident.
They're kicking me. Brady, wake up. And I get up, and they're like, you told your wife that you were going to kill yourself, and she called us. So we're here to find out if you're going to kill yourself. And I don't know why or what had come over me at that moment, whatever it was, I don't know. But like, all of the lies had left me. Everything was gone. I had no lies left. It was like at this moment of, I don't give a fuck. I'm just saying the truth. And I was like, I was just telling her that to get attention. I just wanted her attention. I wanted her here.
Right.
And the cops were like, so you're not going to kill yourself.
Like, that's all we needed.
That's all we needed.
Right.
And they left. And I called Jerry. And Jerry came and got me, and we went to rehab. You know what I mean? It's funny, too, because Jerry was trying to get me to go to a meeting a couple of weeks previous to that. And after she had left, and he goes, I'm sending a buddy to come pick you up, Zach. And Zach's going to come get you, and sent me Zach's number. Zach's texting me, and I'm around the corner. All right, I'm down the street. All right, I'm out front. And the whole time, I'm like entertaining him like I was going to go to this meeting.
But you knew you weren't
I
going.
knew I wasn't going to a fucking meeting. And he's out front, and I texted him. I was like, yeah, I'm not ready to do this yet. You know what I mean? I'm just not ready. So whatever. Like I know, like those guys, we know what those guys are like.
Yeah.
I was one of them. We know what that position is like. And we know ultimately they'll be ready.
Mm-hmm.
When they're ready, they're ready. And I texted Jerry. I'm like, all right, I'm ready, dude.
Yeah, like I'm not
I
joking
sent him
around.
that text like, dude, we're ready. And he was like, oh, you ready to go to a meeting now? Too bad you're going to rehab. It was a meeting. Now it's rehab.
Right. It's a 30-day meeting.
Yeah. So I went to Miramont and I spent 21 days at Miramont. And that was when, oh shit, everything I was doing was wrong.
Was it? What was that transformation as far as like? I mean, you think just because everything had been stripped away and it's just kind of this raw thing sitting there that you were kind of low lying fruit for buy-in on what's the what?
Yeah, I think there's some of that involved. Yeah, I was so vulnerable that I was susceptible to listening. Right. I was just at such a low point that like I think anything was better than where I was.
Yeah, like you knew what you were doing wasn't working.
Correct. Yeah, for sure wasn't working. Even going into rehab, I think I still had some reservations as to like maybe it's just alcohol. Maybe I could still like snort coke every other week or something. Right. And
which is insane.
Yeah, fucking nuts.
It's insane.
It's nuts. Yeah, I think now I'm like, wow. Yeah, but like at that time, you don't know.
No,
you don't fucking know. And I go into rehab, and I think a combination of me being so when my Jerry ultimately ended up being my first sponsor. So when he brought me there. What he said, he's like, look, I'm going to give you one piece of advice, one thing, and this is all I'm going to say, but take it as like the most important thing that like you could hear. Be open-minded, right? And that's what he told me. Just be open-minded. Like, don't dismiss what they're telling you. Like, try to understand that what they're telling you could be correct, and it could be implemented and it could be effective. So I went into it hearing that and thinking like, okay, just let's try it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And, I go to Miramont and that's when they really turn the lights on. You know what I mean? Because, to me, previous to that, I was living in the dark. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I'm on the other side of it now, and I'm able to step back and look at it now and kind of really be able to diagnose and see what was happening.
Isn't it crazy that it doesn't take a lot of separation for you to look at something and go, like, I was in a really bad way.
Yeah.
Where you think, oh, maybe I got a little bit of a problem and I can handle this, but it doesn't take very much time where you separate yourself and you look back, you're like, holy crap, man.
Yeah.
This shit could have gone south a million different times.
Wow. Yeah, for sure. So many different times. And yeah, it was, and I think rehab was important to me because I needed to be removed from society.
Yep.
Right. I needed to be removed. And like that word in its literal sense, like take this fucking guy and get him out of society.
Sure.
Lock him in a fucking facility and like, let's reprogram him. And I say it, I was brainwashed, and I mean that in like a literal form that like they had to like clean my brain. They had to re-engineer my thinking. Like everything that I was doing up until then was wrong.
Well, I compare it to like, I said it on here before, but it's like an operating system, right? Like you've got this computer operating system. And if it's just been downloading pirated movies and crap and it doesn't run right? No. And it needs to be wiped. It needs a serious debugging to get it working the way that it was intended to work. And this isn't a knock on parents because, dude, the truth is, I'm going to guess your parents came from a dysfunctional
Correct.
family. So they're doing the best they can, right?
Yeah, yeah. And you know, in fear of my mom listening to this, I'm not knocking my mom, and she did the best that she could with what she was given.
Of course.
And I know what it's like now to be a parent, right? And I know what it's like now. There's no manual to this thing, you know. Right. There's what we think is right and wrong, but what I think is right and wrong now could change from day to day.
Sure.
Right. So I just try to do the best that I can with my kids. Do I think my mom could have done a better job? Yeah, I do. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it is what it is. Like I said, butterfly effect. I wouldn't change any of it. Everything happened exactly the way it needed to happen.
You know, how raw were you, and how difficult was it to actually start feeling shit for that? I mean, because it's when you say you were there 21 days, that starts that process, right? Like you've got a long time after to kind of dissect stuff.
I had a moment. So like, I would have told you that I was an atheist previous to.
Me too.
Yeah, I would, because I'm fucking smart.
Yeah, I used to like those conversations. I used to like to be, like, you're an atheist? Let's talk about this.
Yeah. So like, I would have told you that I was an atheist previous to getting sober, and I could have told you 1,000 different reasons why, and that, but like, it didn't take much convincing for me to realize that, for me, a higher power is not only necessary, but exist. You know what I mean? So my God moment was, we were in small group and we said the Our Father, right? Mm-hmm. And I had said the Our Father 1,000,000 times previous to this. Sure. Like I said it before football games, baseball, like said it 1,000 times. I never listened to it. I never actually heard the words of it, right? And I'm sitting there in a small group and I'm reciting the words, and like every phrase is hitting home. Like I'm relating to every fucking line of it, Mm-hmm. And I'm just like, wow, this is what this means, and this is what this means, and then I'm like, okay, this was made for a reason, mm-hmm. right? This was created, and this was written down, and this was recited millions of times throughout its existence for a very specific reason. And to me, that was all I needed to believe that there was a higher power. And if you work a program, you know that like there's no supreme definition as to what we believe a higher power is.
Yeah. It's everyone's a little different. Like even for that, for me, I was in a meeting and somebody said, dude, you don't believe in a higher power. You're in a room full of drunks that don't drink. You're in a room full of people that couldn't stop doing something, but collectively they do it. And if that's not a higher power, just that within itself, if you thought about you as a father, that's a higher power because, dude, the old you, you know what I mean? Like you and I we talked about setting this up before, and you like list, all right, like no, Wednesdays, I forget what days, my kid's day.
Yeah.
Dude, can you imagine, like, here you are, you're meeting your old man for the first time in court. So you've got a higher power that's already brought you to do something that's, to your kids, that's bigger than anything in the world. It's huge. Yeah.
I think in the book they leave, and I say the book to Big Book.
Sure,
right?
I know.
I think they leave these things a little vague by design, right? A lot of it is vague by design, and they don't want to get too definitive because my feeling is that they don't want to scare you away from.
That's exactly it.
You know what I mean? They don't want to scare you away from and developing your own, because for me, it's 100%, not 99.5, like 100% necessary to believe in a higher power, and you can't get away from that. You have to have it, because, and my explanation for that is, if I don't believe that somebody else is in control, then who's in control? Me.
That's a bad.
And that's a fucking terrible thing, right? Like we saw what happens when I'm in control.
Yeah.
Right? I know what happens when I'm calling the shots. It's not good. So one of the early suggestions that I had from my sponsor was he gave me an analogy of you've been driving your car, you're you're in the driver's seat, you're behind the wheel, and you're driving your car that is your life, and you're just fucking crashing into everything.
Yeah.
Boom, boom, boom. Both literally and metaphorically.
Sure.
Right? Because there's other DUIs after the first one. There's there's two more. We don't have to go too much, but there's more of them. So, you've been crashing your car and you've been fucking up your life because of the decisions. You're deciding when to turn. You're deciding when to brake. You're deciding when to press the gas pedal. Get in the fucking passenger seat and let somebody else make some decisions. And at that time, it was your sponsor. Talk to your sponsor. Ask him all the little stupid fucking questions that you got to ask. Everything that you want to know, ask him.
Yeah, it's almost like being a child again.
You're
like
100%.
You need
because
to.
I was.
Yeah, right.
I was.
Yeah, it's arrested development, man. You're stuck in this this version of yourself that's toxic, right? Everything is compromised by bad decision making, chasing dopamine, which makes you feel like shit, feel shame. So what do? You try and feel good, go after this thing that makes you feel good again, and it's this vicious cycle. It just snowballs. So you need somebody who's got a clear mind, who's been through this, and really somebody who understands the piece of wood that you're cut from. You know what I mean? Like
someone you can relate to, somebody who knows.
Yeah.
Right? Like you're not going to learn how to fight from someone who is a welder.
right.
I mean, he could be a welder, but like you're not like he's not teaching you how to weld. He's teaching you how to fight.
Yeah.
I need to learn how to be sober from somebody who is sober.
Makes sense.
Right. It's not to say that there's not things that you could learn.
Dude, it's a level of street. You need street cred.
But
it's that street
for
cred.
me to listen, I need someone that I can relate to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And who can call because there's a level of deception. There's a dude.
He knew me before. That's the other thing.
Yeah.
He knew me before. Before rehab, he knows who I am. He knows my motives, and he knows me, and he knows himself, and we're alike, and we're of the same cut from the same stone. And he was able to, call me out on my bullshit.
Yep.
So there were suggestions that were made, and then there were changes that I had to make, and some of them weren't fucking easy, man. They weren't easy, and particularly so. When I got sober, I had to make sobriety a priority, right? Try telling your fucking wife that everything that you fucking did to her and all of the shit that you put her through, that now she's number two, right? So now you get sober and you're like, I have to go to a meeting. She's like, what the fuck you have to go to a meeting? You spent fucking the last 3 years in the bar. Now you're telling me you have to go to the meeting, and I'm home with the kids.
Yeah.
You're not at the bar. You could be here home with the kids helping me. And I'm like, sorry, got to go to a meeting. You're number two.
Yeah.
Sobriety's number one. And there was a lot of conflict as a result of that. But like we had talked about earlier, if you really want something, you have to give it more of your
bandwidth,
your pie.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That particular item needs more of your pie. And the way that it was explained to me is that sobriety needs to be like a large portion of your pie, right? That needs to be the main focus of like every day of your life.
Well, especially at that state, everything else in that pie doesn't get a version of you that it needs to be around.
Correct.
You know what
Correct.
I mean?
Yeah. Without sobriety, like it, everything's different, right? Everything. Yeah. My kids don't have a dad. My wife doesn't have a husband. Everything's different. And we're kind of going full circle here in the fact that, like we had talked on about fighting, right? And how MMA and fighting is kind of inherently conflicting with sobriety, right? Like there are sober fighters, and you can be successful at both. It is very possible, but it's not easy, right? It's not easy. And I've talked about this before, about that inner conflict that I have, that I'm sure other fighters have. And who's the fighter that fucking just fought? Sean Brady fought him in his first fight. I can look him up, but he's a sober MMA fighter and successful sober MMA fighter. He won the Ultimate Fighter. But he, for me, to be successful in sobriety, you have to really check your ego, right? And they call this the deflation of your ego. I struggle with that bad, because with MMA, you almost have to have an ego.
Of course.
You know what I mean? You have to be selfish. And you have to give it time. You have to give fighting pieces of your pie.
Yeah.
You have to, because if you don't, the consequences are dire. Like, you could go out there and seriously get hurt if you're not training and you're not giving it time and pieces of your pie. Like,
how long between sobriety and fighting? What type of time gap are we talking about here?
So I got sober in 2016, and then I took my first fight. I guess that's 2019, 2018. I had to look it up. But it wasn't too long ago, and it wasn't too long after. There was a time when, like I said, it was all about sobriety.
Yeah.
And, they say no major decisions in your first year of sobriety. And, I kind of really didn't take that one too strongly, because my wife and I had separated in that first year. And, but there were some suggestions that I took along with that. And, so 2016, I think I took my first fight in 2018.
So you start training really shortly after
getting sober?
Yeah.
Well, a couple years.
Okay.
A couple years.
Oh, so from the time you start training to the time you took your first fight,
it was very short.
Okay.
Very, very short. So I had done some boxing, not a lot. Like, someone reached out to me and said, and I boxed previously. Between high school and college, I did some boxing. Not a lot. And then I did some boxing after college, nothing crazy. And someone had reached out to me, and, I got sober, I got in shape.
Sure.
Started looking good again, started feeling good again. And someone reached out to me and asked me if I wanted to do a boxing match. So I did a boxing match, and at this boxing match, there was someone who did MMA, and they had asked me, I say they asked me. They were kind of like talking shit on me a little bit, saying like MMA fighters are tougher. So I took offense to that, and I said, okay, well, I want to do MMA. I want to learn MMA. He gave me the number of the promoter.
That's the ego.
Yeah,
that's the ego.
The fucking ego. Yeah, you're right. So I reached out to the promoter, and I said, I want to do MMA, right? And he goes, what jiu-jitsu experience do you have? And at that time, I had zero, like never had been on a mat, never wrestled. Honestly, I had no idea what jiu-jitsu actually was.
Right.
Jiu-jitsu, what's that?
Yeah.
Like, it meant nothing to me. I had no idea what it was. I didn't know who the Gracies were. I didn't know, like, nothing. I knew who Chuck Liddell was.
Right.
I knew who Tito Ortiz was. Like, I knew like these big names, and I knew the UFC, but I didn't know enough about the UFC or fighters in the UFC to know that they even did jiu-jitsu.
Right.
Like, I didn't even know that. So he says, do you have any jiu-jitsu? No. Okay, well, you need to do some jiu-jitsu before I put you on an MMA card. So I go around the corner from my house, and I join the gym, and I did 2 months of jiu-jitsu, and he put me on a card.
That was it.
That was it. I did 2 months, and he put me on a card. And so that was August. I started training. I fought in October. Right. I started training jiu-jitsu in August. I fought in October. And I lost my first fight. The guy took me down and kind of just held me down.
Sure.
Like we stood and I punched him a couple times and he never punched me any times. And then he took me down and kind of just held on me, and it was early, so it was only 2-minute rounds, and that's all he needed to do. And you look at the fight and you go, oh, this guy got taken down, he got held, and so I lost my first fight. But, I was hooked.
That's what you need.
That was it. And I was like, oh, wow, that was a lot of fun. And you get that dopamine hit, right?
Yeah.
All the fans screaming and all that stuff, and all of these, everyone patting on your back, and you feel real good. And so now, like, you're getting these pleasures, right? And you're getting these pleasures, and it's not drugs, right? It's not drinking, but like you're addicted.
Dude, it fires off that frontal cortex, man. Like,
Yeah.
Dude, I questioned this. Like, I did for a while. I was doing stand-up comedy, and it was the same thing. Like, I'd get off stage if it was a good night, dude. I
Kind of look like Jim Brewer a little bit. Anyone ever tell you that?
Yeah. I have actually heard that, but I would feel like I was on fire, man. Like I was like, dude, that's a drug. There's a reason they say that's a drug.
Yeah.
Right. Like, it has that same kind of effect. Yeah. So yeah, I get it, man. And I've even questioned this, like, why do I have to be here? Why do I got to do this? Why don't if I just live my own life and just live the way I'm preaching about on here? But there's something that draws us.
Yeah. So, like in the AA program, they say you're supposed to make your number one concern outside of your family and life, but helping others. Yep. Right. You're supposed to be helping others, and through helping others, all of the pleasure that you need in life is supposed to be derived from helping others. Right. And if I'm not helping others because I'm fighting, I'm pulling away from that. Right. And I'm not contributing to what was given to me. Which is selfish, it's selfish in nature. And I struggle with that because I only have so much pie. Right. Yeah. And for me to tell you that I am a full contributing member of AA would be a lie. You know what I mean? I'd be lying to you if I told you I had 6 sponsees and I talk to my sponsor every day and I do everything that they talk about that we should be doing. I'd be lying to you.
Yeah.
Right. And then of course you have the half measures avail us nothing. Right. So you kind of have to do like a self-inventory and say like, okay, well, are you doing half measures right now? Like, do you need to do more? And you kind of teeter like this little bit of a line. It's like, well, I don't feel like drinking. I don't feel like getting high. So like, I guess I'm doing okay.
Yeah.
I was in the airport on the way to Vegas, right? And
for Chris
when he fought Derek Lewis, and I'm sitting in the airport, and it's like, I look over at Chicky and Pete's, and I'm like, I could go in there right now, sit down, and have a Captain and Coke, and fucking no one would know. And I'm like, oh shit, I need to get to a meeting.
Yeah, dude, there's
but oh fuck, I need to get to because that's what they say. It's cunning and baffling, right?
Yeah.
Like it will get you out of nowhere, and it's like, you don't go to a meeting for 2 weeks. You're not talking to others. You need to call your sponsor and all this little shit. And then you look over at Chicken Pete. You're like, I smell Captain and Coke. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's like, shit.
Well, that's that demon, because I'm going to assume that for a good portion of your life, it's those times when you think you can get away with something.
Yeah.
Those are opportunities.
Yeah.
And it's a much different experience when now you hold yourself accountable and you act as if you're like, no one's watching, but you act as if they are, right?
Yeah.
And I think everyone has those times when what was an opportunity before, you're at that crossroads.
Yeah.
And you have to make that decision one way or the other. Like,
you make the right decision. I made the right decision. I've been in those moments before in sobriety where it's like, well, you could do this and nobody would know and nobody would find out. And I've been in enough of those situations. I've had enough training in sobriety to know what to do. Pick up the phone, call someone, let somebody know where you're at, what's going on, and why you just thought that way. And I did. And I talked myself through it, and I got through it, and everything was fine. But without acknowledging that, then I'm like really fucked up.
Yeah.
Like without knowing like, hey, shit, this is what happened. why did that happen? Where was I mentally when that happened? And without really doing some self-inventory and really digging into what happened at that moment, then you're really setting yourself up for disaster.
Yeah.
You know?
I mean, this just happened not that long ago to me. When was the last time you had a dream where you boozed or you did something?
Yeah, it's been a while since that's happened. It's been a while, but dude, I had a lot of those early on.
Me too.
A lot of those, yeah.
Yeah.
And it's like you are, man. You're drunk and you're fucking stoned in those dreams, and you are, man. And I've woken up in a full panic before, thinking I've relapsed. Like,
yeah.
Full panic.
Well, and I think I had a dream that that I drank and I didn't really care about it in my dream.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden in my dream, it came over me like a wave, like, what?
Yeah.
What are you? And then I woke up. And the sense of relief of when you wake up, I mean, I've woken up in tears from these things, right? And especially early on, when I first quit, like that was a thing. I'm like, and it was good to hear other people. So I'm like, dude, I keep dreaming about this. I keep dreaming.
Yeah.
And
they'll tell you it's common.
Yeah,
it's common.
Yeah. And then I didn't have one for a really long time. And then I questioned that. I'm like, I just had a dream. What does that mean? I need something's not right. Like, but it is going back to the ego and the fighting thing. Have other fighters, because you've been vocal, right? Like you don't go out of your way, but people have brought it up in interviews.
Yeah.
Have people reached out to you, at least being curious about your path, why you do it, and then with the idea maybe that they're looking to maybe make some changes.
There's been other guys like in my gym. We have members of AA at Martinez, right? Like we even have a little Facebook group. Other guys that
that's cool.
Yeah. I think it's like BJJ, sober BJJ guys, but there's, I want to say there's at least like a dozen of us, and we all know, and it's like not I could say his name, Kevin Quigg. He kind of is like, he's got the most time, and he's got us all and like talks to us all and like kind of keeps us all in the know as far as like people's anniversaries and stuff like that.
February 1st is yours?
Yeah. So
coming up, man.
Yeah, I know. So to answer your question, there has been guys who have said stuff to me, but nobody has like really approached me like, hey, look, man, I got a problem and I need help. That's not to say it won't ever happen. I don't know. Fighters have egos, man. Fighters have egos, man. We have egos, and I don't know that I would have necessarily asked somebody that I needed help. It kind of needed to be fucking thrusted on me.
Yeah,
like, I kind of needed no choice, and then there was the implementation of him going out of his way. Like, I know him; he's gonna need help. Like, there was a lot of work on his end to get me sober. It didn't really come from me, like Jerry put a lot of work in, and he's the one, like, he showed up and he kept calling me and he kept working me. So I think that if I were doing what I probably should be doing and really, working a program and maybe talking to people who I think may have problems about their problem, maybe something of that nature would happen. I don't know.
Yeah. See, the thing is, I'm speculating, and I'm not trying to just blow smoke, but I'm going to say within those circles, the circles of fighters, like the ego, right? Yeah. To shed that type of vulnerability to another, it's a tough ask.
Yeah, it is. It is.
But you don't know how many people you might have planted a seed where they go and then they go talk to somebody.
And they go in another direction. Absolutely.
They find their Jerry.
Yeah. I mean, it's funny because I had other guys who are in AA actually say something to me because I've talked about my sobriety before on other podcasts, and they've approached me and say, the tradition says that, like, you're not supposed to do that, right? And my response to that is, like, if I help one person, if one person hears me, then fuck the tradition.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And the ideology of the tradition is that, like, okay, so if I talk about being sober, right, and then I'm all of a sudden not sober and I go back out. Now it looks bad on AA, right? And I can understand that too. I can sympathize with that idea. But I feel good talking about it.
Yeah.
You know, and I feel like I mean, look, I've gotten DMs. I've had people DM me and say, "Hey, look, man, I heard your message. It's really inspiring. You know, I got a cousin or I got a friend or this or that or the other." So I think there's an effect. I think it helps.
Yeah, and man, this I don't want to rub people the wrong way on this. The program has got a ton of stuff. I mean, it got me sober, right?
Yeah,
it got me sober. But the rules and everything that go along with these things, they were written by two guys. Right?
Yeah,
they came up with these rules.
Yeah,
and there's
suggestions.
Suggestions. There's suggestions.
Yeah,
there's
suggestions.
And there's not to say that some people, they go 100% in, and like you'll talk to somebody, they're like, I've been doing this for 40 years, and they are like molded
by the book. Yeah.
And then there's other people that for them, their program, and I think one of the most important things like I push, I discuss on here is that everyone's journey is a little bit different.
Yeah.
And some people, this over here works for them, and other people, it's this over here. And I don't ever bash one or the other, because the main goal is what? It's to be sober.
Correct.
Right? And it's to live this life, right? So, I don't know.
I'm with you. I'm with you. And there are certain things that you feel work for you, right? Like techniques with fighting, like fuck, man, I feel like this head kick is just not for me.
Right.
But I can kick the shit out of a calf.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
I can really fucking dig in on a calf, and I feel good. I feel comfortable there. Same goes for AA. Like, you can, some things you're probably just not really super comfortable with, reaching out to others, this and that, and but like, if somebody asked you for help, like, you're okay with talking to someone. And then look, times are different too.
Yeah.
Like, we're dealing with a different world environment than when the big book was written. It's almost like the Constitution, like, of the United States. It's like the world was different when they wrote this shit down.
Yeah.
The world was a lot different when the big book was written, right? And there are a lot of other things at play now. But again, we have to say that it worked.
It works.
It works.
It works.
Fucking works. And one of the analogies I like is your sobriety is like building a piece of furniture, right? So you go, let's just say IKEA. You go to IKEA and you buy this piece of furniture, and they give you the directions, right? And you're supposed to build this piece of furniture, a chair, according to these directions. And then, you're step one, okay, here, there, and step two, and you do this, and then you get to like step 5 and 6, and you're like, all right, I get the idea.
Yeah, I
get what's going on. And you start fucking screwing shit in, and then you sit down in a chair, and it's like a little wobbly.
Mm-hmm.
Right? You're like, oh, this fucking chair is wobbly. What the hell's going on? And then you look back at the steps, and you're like, oh shit, I didn't do that. I skipped this, or I didn't do that. The chair will hold up, right? You can sit in it, it'll hold up, but it's wobbly, and it's not the way it's 100% supposed to be. And they say that inevitably that chair is going to break and fall apart without all of the steps, right?
Yeah.
So like the same could be said for your sobriety, that like without the steps, without doing what others have done to be successful, ultimately we're not going to be successful. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I
don't know, man.
I don't know.
Because I look, I know guys who were full-blown heroin addicts, right? Full-blown heroin addicts, got sober through AA, stopped drinking, and then picked up drinking, and their life is okay.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And it's not for everyone. And I'm not saying that that's a route that I think I'm capable of doing or anything of that nature. But I know guys who've done it and it worked and they're okay. My response for that is nothing ever good came from drinking for me. There was never a moment when I went out drinking and was like, woke up the next day like, oh my God, as a result of me going out drinking last night, I woke up the next day with a Lamborghini.
Yeah, right.
You know what I mean?
Right,
It's like nothing ever good came from drinking.
Yeah.
Nothing.
Yeah.
Ever good came from drinking. So for me, even if I could drink successfully now, I don't need to. Because I know nothing good came from it previously.
That's I thought about it early on because you hear, like I've heard the same thing. Like some people, they go, "Oh, I drank because of this, and now that I figured this out, then I can drink responsibly." And I've accepted the fact that I'm not that person.
I'm totally okay with it.
And people go, "Oh, you quit." I go, "Man, the juice just wasn't worth the squeeze." At some point, I decided, and don't get me wrong, I had a lot of fun. Like there's times I look back and I go, I really enjoyed that. And there's still times where I'll see like you talk about a whiff. Like I'll get a whiff of like a bourbon or something. Like, ooh, I miss you.
Yeah.
I don't really miss you, but for that split second, I missed, but never enough to sacrifice everything. Because, I mean, the fact is, you would not be a fighter.
Yeah, no.
I would not be sitting here on a moderately successful podcast. But I joke around.
No.
But it's none of. I've achieved more things through dealing with this thing than I could have ever imagined.
Correct. Yeah, I was. It's funny because I have a lot of sober friends that I talk to every day, and some sober friends that I haven't talked to in a while, and they reach out to me for one reason or another. Maybe it's about fighting, maybe it's about that, but like I'm today, like a common response that I have to friends of mine that are sober is I'm living a life beyond my wildest dreams.
Yep.
Literally. I mean, it's beyond, I could have never imagined the life that I live right now.
Yeah.
Could never. I don't like to pat myself on the back, but I like to tell myself I have a beautiful home. You have a beautiful home here, right? It's a home. I have a home.
Yeah.
I never had a home, right? And my kids, they have their own room. They have beds. Like they have everything that a child needs to be successful, right? I never had I never had a stable home. And I was only able to do that because I got sober.
As I said, that's sobriety.
And the only reason that I've done any of that is because I got sober. I've been able to extinguish my old reputation. You know what I mean?
Yeah, dude, what a feat. Dude, what a feat.
When you heard my name previous to me getting sober, it went hand in hand with Coke. Hand in hand. You heard my name? Cocaine. Right away. Cocaine. Hand in hand. That doesn't exist anymore. Nobody, I mean, maybe someone who hasn't seen me in that long, or nobody thinks of me like that anymore. Nobody, like, put it to you like this, to put things into a little bit of perspective. Chris, right, Dawkins, and he brought me out to Las Vegas, right? Brought me out to Las Vegas, the Sin City, with him, right, to his place of employment, which is the UFC, because he trusted me, right? He brought me in his corner. I walked out of T-Mobile Arena with him in his corner, and he did that because he knew I wasn't a liability. Right?
And he's a cop. So this guy's a cop.
This guy's a cop, right? Like he's capable of looking at these situations and analyzing them on the spot, right? Like he literally he reads people for a living.
Sure.
He's capable of knowing, making a judgment, right? And through his interactions with me, he deemed me capable of accompanying him in Las Vegas at his place of employment where, like, you know, there's plenty of moments that things could easily go in the wrong direction.
Yeah.
Right. And he's made that decision that I'm, you know, and then, you know, Will, our coach, right? And he's even said, like, Pat, ever since you've started coming out here with us, like, it's become something different. You being here with us for these moments has become something different. Like, you bring a different aura, a different vibe, a different energy to these moments. And if I was drinking, it'd be a whole nother different vibe.
That's not the energy they want.
That's not the energy they want. I was a liability. I was no good. It's like, where's Pat? Oh, where the fuck is Pat? Where's Pat?
Yeah. You don't even want to know.
You don't even know where Pat. Nobody knows where Pat is. Like, I'd have been gone.
Yeah.
Who knows? I don't know. Or gone and back, even worse.
Right.
Maybe I'm gone and then I come back. You don't want me to come back. You want me to stay gone.
Stay gone.
Stay gone. Yeah. And, you know, I've got people's trust today. You know, I have the trust of my family. I have the trust of, you know, there's people in my life today that don't even know me to be drinking. They don't even know me.
Yeah.
Like, they don't even know. Like, the guys at the gym, they don't know what I was like. They have no fucking clue. They have no clue what I was like before. Dude. And even my old friends, and to get to the theme of your podcast, and this is all as a direct result of my habits, right? Like, I took these things that were bad habits. I made good habits, right? And as a consequence of my good habits, I've developed this name, right? A new name. Whereas in my old name is extinguished. Now I have a new name.
That's what they call your birthday, right? It's a birthday.
Yeah.
Like February 1st for you was a rebirth.
Correct. Absolutely. And it's brought new meaning. It's brought a new, what's that? Like my kids, right?
Yeah.
Like everything is new. The trajectory of my life has totally changed, right? Like not just for my life, but for the life of the people around me.
Wait, you go back to the butterfly effect.
Correct.
So what is this darkest moment? I mean, it's the obstacle is the way. It's this thing that is this mountain in front of you now adds life to your kids they never could have imagined, or you couldn't have imagined as a kid.
I couldn't. No, like my kids have a fucking quad in the shed,
right?
And fucking anything they want. They got the Oculus. They we didn't have that shit. I didn't have any of that shit. Like,
can you imagine they knew that started with getting kicked by some cops asking if you're going to kill yourself?
Yeah, I've had a little bit of this conversation with my son Colin. He's 10, and he's smart. He's just a fucking smart kid, man. He's just super, super observant, and he's not aggressive. Opposite of me. My 7-year-old is super aggressive. He's got a seat at the table with us when he gets home. Right. But my 10-year-old, he doesn't know me to be drinking. He might have little blurs of memories when I drank, but he knows I used to drink and he knows I don't anymore, right? And he knows that I used to have a problem with drinking and now I don't. He knows I go to meetings, and he knows that I don't. This is where Daddy's going. I'm sorry, son. Kiss you goodnight. Go to bed. I'm going to a meeting, and he knows I have to.
Yeah.
And I've had the conversation of like, hey, look, dude, if I drink, we got problems.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And you know, that's as a direct result of the consequences of good habits, right? Creating these routines and these things, and giving pieces of my pie to things that were good.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. It's important that they understand this. They don't need to know the dark stuff. And I'm not even talking about you. I'm just talking to myself, but I've said on here before that kids need to know, one, we're not perfect.
Yeah.
And two, the blueprint that you were given, you don't have to follow that, right? Like you can make changes in your life if things aren't working for you. If you grew up, like your kid starts drinking and there's a feeling of helplessness, knowing that their parent made a change has got so much power in it, dude.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And that transparency.
Yeah.
Right. Like when they get to a certain age and you're capable of really explaining to them your flaws and your imperfections, and they're like, oh shit, like like this is real. Like, right. Like my dad made these changes and this is how he did it. No one ever explained that to me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I never had someone sit down and like really get deep and
I call it a blueprint, man. Like you grow up thinking like, hey, this is how I adult.
yeah.
This is how I was taught to adult.
Yeah.
And it's a defining moment, man, when you realize like, no. I can do this in a healthier way, a better way, but that process of change, it's not easy.
Yeah.
Right. Like it's going to, I'm going to have to do some stuff.
Yeah, man. It's still not easy today.
No.
It's still like, I struggle. I really struggle, man. I struggle with the pie. They call it the balance, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I struggle with the balance, and there's some what's the word I'm looking for? Turmoil. Turmoil is a harsh word, but there's problems in my life today. My wife hates the fact that I fight.
Does she?
Hates it. Absolutely. Like she said that if I fight again, she's going to divorce me.
Oh, wow.
Right. I'm kind of calling her bluff on it.
Yeah, dude. We'll talk after. I should pull this out.
She says, she said, I'm printing out the divorce paperwork. And my response was, well, it's a lot of papers. You better check the ink in the cartridge.
In the bear.
Yeah. So, and like we have to make these decisions in our life, and this is a decision that, I have to kind of like weigh out the consequences, and I don't think she's going to leave me, but I think there's going to be a little bit of a resentment on her behalf, for me fighting, and but I think the resentment for me not fighting could potentially be more harmful to our relationship than the resentment that she's going to have for me for fighting. She has her reasons. I have my reasons why it's good, and she has her reasons why it's bad. And it's not easy. But I've talked to people. I've talked to my sponsor. I've talked to countless people about this, and some people side with her, some people don't.
Yeah.
So, look, when we get sober, life does not necessarily get perfect.
No.
Right? Like it doesn't, like it's not all rainbows and butterflies on the other side of putting the bottle down. It doesn't work like that.
Yeah. I've said that before too.
Yeah.
And like addiction is, they say addiction is like water. It's going to find cracks.
Yeah, man.
And everyone picks their poison.
Yeah.
Ours happened to be booze. You had your own, but there's a million other poisons out there calling your name. So.
Yeah, man. Yeah, and according to her, MMA is a poison. Like she's scared of CTE and stuff like that, and it's a real fear of hers. And her father's a fucking orthopedic surgeon.
Oh yeah, that doesn't help, right? but her,
it doesn't help at all.
That's a struggle because hers comes from a place of love.
Correct, and I've never had anybody love me enough. Like, I mean, for just being honest, most women would be attracted to that kind of thing, like the alpha male, this testosterone, and look at what my husband or boyfriend or significant other is accomplishing, and they would be, happy and
sure,
but her, it's like, I'm scared you're gonna get hurt, and it does feel good to be loved, but like I said, I have my argument and she has hers, and we're gonna find out how this thing goes because April 1st, I'm fighting April 1st.
Where are you fighting?
At Philly Live.
Okay.
The new casino in South Philly. Philly Live Casino.
I know it.
For Art of War, and it's a Friday night, and then they're doing another show the next night afterward. April 2nd at the same location, and I'm gonna be the main event for Friday night. It's my first pro main event, and I was able to do that in just 2 fights, and it's crazy, man. I remember my first fight, and it was like they had me as the first fight on the card. It was like my first fight, and they had me as the first fight on the card. And I said to the promoter, I'm like, man, you gotta make me the first fight. And he's like, you're kind of a fucking nobody, and
Yeah.
it's your first fight, and I guess I can make you the second, And I was the second fight on my first fight, and now
Headline.
through hard work, through consequences of my habits, I'm going to be the main event for my second pro fight.
Amazing.
And I've told myself that when I first started this, I'm not even going to go pro. Right? It's a hobby, and I'm not going to go pro. But fuck, man, it really took off.
Yeah.
And it's turned into a passion more than a hobby. It's turned into a passion, and it's turned into something that has been for me an extreme positive. Right?
Yeah.
Like I'm putting myself around these people that are good people, right? Like these are good people. Like and I've seen bad people, and there's some bad people. You see yourself, and you can put distance between you and them, but the people that I'm surrounding myself with are good people, inherently good people.
You guys got a tight knit. I mean, just from looking from the outside, you guys got a tight knit group that really look out for each other, support each other.
Yeah, and that goes into it too, because I don't think that my teammates would ever point me into a direction where they thought that I would be doing myself harm or a disservice.
Yeah.
And, if they thought that like I couldn't do what I'm attempting to do, they would say like, hey, look, man, you're not that fucking good.
Yeah.
You're fucking old, and maybe just keep it at.
Where you at?
Be okay with what you've accomplished and hang it up.
Because they love you.
Yeah.
Right? Like, and they're willing to be brutally honest.
Correct. Yeah. And I trust the fact that they would be that honest. But I feel like I can do it, man. And I feel like that I can win 4 to 5 fights. And I think that I can make it to the UFC. And I think I'm not 100% positive of this, but if I were to get signed, I would be the oldest debut in UFC history.
It'd be awesome.
Right? So like nobody has ever debuted at 37, 38 in the UFC.
Yeah.
I have to look that up, but I'm pretty sure it's never been done. I'm almost positive.
Yeah, no names pop. I mean, not that I know them all, but no names pop out.
No. Nobody jumps off. So that's something that I want to do, man. That's something that a little bit of it's ego,
Sure,
a little bit of it's ego, but like a lot of it is that like, man, fuck, when this is all done and I don't. Right? Like, what am I going to tell myself? Like, you could have, right? Because I have a lot of lost time, right? A lot of, you could have done this or you could have done that. I was really good at football, right? I was really athletic, and I could run. I can still run. But like, if I wasn't a fucking alcoholic, maybe if I was born on the main line, and, maybe I would have been drafted. I played with kids that I know I was better than, that got drafted, that went to Penn State. I didn't get to do that because I got a fucking DUI.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? There's a lot of what ifs. I don't dwell on the what ifs, right? Because again, we don't want to change anything. But I don't want to be 5 years from now and saying, what if?
You're trying to squeeze as much out of this time as you got.
Yeah, man. Why not? Like, shit, why not?
Yeah, I get it.
Why not?
Dude, I completely...
it is what it is.
Yeah.
And this is kind of like, the path that I'm on, that this is the journey that, I've had positive experiences with, you know?
Yeah, I get it.
So, yeah.
It's an amazing story,
Yeah.
man. I'm dude, I'm stoked we made this happen.
Yeah,
I'm stoked we're having this
I appreciate you having
conversation.
me. Yeah.
April 2nd.
April 1st. April 1st, yeah.
Art of War.
Art of War, Philly Live.
Philly Live, man. You know, our dates are only 3 days off.
No shit.
February 4th for me.
2016?
No. No, I'm just hitting my 3.
Yeah, nice. Hey, look, that's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, man. But I'm excited to watch his journey as it goes. I'm just to the interactions we've had. Because it's weird because I've sent you like some stoic stuff and these aren't conversations that I would think I'd be having with a fighter.
No.
And the fact that, Jerry said going into this thing open-minded, you took that to heart.
You have to be.
And you've looked at this whole thing and dude, it's just, I don't know you, but I'm proud of the fact that to know what you've come from to where you're at.
Yeah.
It's a big deal, man. It really is a big deal. So
yeah, I appreciate that.
Yeah, you should be patting yourself on the back. It's an awesome accomplishment, man. But so let's do this again another time, man.
Absolutely.
Right.
Hey, look, I'm game.
Especially you're close now here. So.
Yeah. I'm right down the street now. It's 15 minutes. Yeah, for sure. Thank you for having me.
All right, man. I appreciate you. All right, everybody. That's it from me. Thanks to Patrick Brady for coming on the podcast. Make sure you guys check out his social media. Follow him. See what he's doing. Check out Few Will Hunt. You'll see him rocking a bunch of their gear. And that's it. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. I'll catch you guys next week.